Fun Run, it's about one man's endurance as he attempts to run a marathon live on stage. There's the runner, Tristan Meecham, on a treadmill running a 42k marathon. And he's supported, though, by all of these different communities and flash mobs. It's like this organism that's created on stage that allows him to actually get over the line because, you know, he's not a marathon runner.
The great thing about this work, but also a very frustrating thing about this work, is that it's very, very hard to describe what it actually is. And often people only understand what the event is in the moment of experiencing the event. All the Queen's men, who were the artists for Fun Run, they create this kind of spectacular participatory events.
It ends up becoming a celebration of a city. It's a bonkers block party.
For Tristan, it's taking the notion of the legend of Phidippides, who was the Greek runner from Marathon who famously arrived at the Athenian assembly. He'd run the 42Ks, he delivered the news and died on the spot. I was always inspired with the idea of risk and different sort of states of putting the artist's body through endurance tasks to get a sort of sense of truth, a sense of sort of reality, and Marathon ended up being something that people understood. We chose Fun Run because it involved communities, which we've been working with on the Betty Amsden participation program over 4 years now. But it also was a great way of involving the general public in a very enjoyable way through the quite broad flash mob experience. I think the flash mob is a really important aspect of the work because it's an invitation for the general public to be performers, to be participants in the work.
The flash mob is really integral to engaging passers-by into the physicality of the work, given that it goes for 5 hours. So it's also a great reset. The flash mob happens at the top of every hour, so it's a great chance for the audience and all the performers to clock into the next hour. We delivered 25 flash mob workshops. Amazing. We've never had that opportunity before. That meant the scope of who we were offering it to was so broad. So we were spending time in primary schools, we were going to mixed ability dance academies, and then into really public spaces. It was a total joy.
And we worked with other urban projects to engage a whole bunch of young people from Melbourne's north to be the Athenian army leaders. They had a very special role on the day. They were present at every single flash mob during Fun Run, and they were in bright yellow t-shirts, very clearly identifiable to the audience as people who knew exactly what they were doing when it came to the flash mob moves and might be good people to follow.
I think people are shy about dancing, and part of the joy, I think, of those flash mob workshops was that total abandon of not caring what you look like.
The idea was to show that really anyone can get involved in the arts, and that's one of the aims of the Betty Amsden participation program. Creativity is open for all.
I heard the music, it got me a little bit sort of, fired up, and Sally approached me and said, put a t-shirt on and join us.
It was really kind of, I guess, reinvigorating to be inclusive in the sense that you feel like you're part of a community.
It brought people together in the sense that there was no, gender wasn't an issue, age wasn't an issue. It was just about purely getting out there, having fun and being part of a group performing, I guess, or trying to perform.
Okay, I'm going to practice my moonwalk tomorrow. I got this.
So for Fun Run, we needed to work with a core of professional dancers who are up on stage with Beck and Tristan to really lead the flash mobs and to keep the vibe up on stage.
And so for this edition, it was a wonderful opportunity to bring my colleagues from Indigenous hip hop projects. I'd had the great privilege of working with them over the last couple of years in Indigenous remote communities. It was a great thing to be able to bring dancers who normally work in a very different context and to put them right into the centre of Fun Run in a lot of gold lycra. Beautiful. The community groups are really the heart of what Fun Run's all about, and without them, it's just a chubby man running a marathon on a treadmill, and that nobody wants to watch that.
There were 24 community groups involved in the performance, in the flash mobs. It was quite huge.
They're the through line, they're the reason why we're doing it. It's been interesting to see how we've curated community group, because it's a representation of the city that we're performing in, the types of people that are in that city, and also that time and place.
Quite often they weren't traditional groups that the Arts Centre would work with, and that was because of their fitness focus or the different way that they practice their physicality.
What's really great is that you're juxtaposing people's experiences side by side and also demonstrating that they're all equal in that way as well.
Arts always is something that's breaking down those barriers, and I think it's so important for people to have that thought pattern a bit shaken up, that people with a disability potentially can't do what other people can, because they can. It's just about us supporting them and giving them the right access and the right ability to feel like they're included.
Circus it's a great alternative to traditional sports. Having that blend of physical activity and creativity is awesome.
It's good to see them sort of get the skill and see the excitement within that skill and see them light up.
We're dealing with some kids who, they come in, they've got a wonderful sense of self, but there's a lot of kids that don't. So in working with those kids and actually seeing the changes that happen for them in such a fun way, it's a really rewarding experience for them.
With your head down so much, it's easy to feel really sort of alone in this sort of such a niche interest. And then when you have those people around you, especially like Tristan on stage, when he sees us all, it just reminds you that you're not the only one, and there's people around you that support you, and seeing the similarities between us all.
In many ways, sports organisations, fitness groups, they have a massive sense of community, and a lot of people volunteer to be part of that world and make things happen like they do in the arts. So this is something that we really shared, and it became very apparent when dealing with all of these groups, their passion, what gets them through, it's heart.
The building was full of people who might not normally come here, who had a complete sense of ownership because it was their stage. It was built for them.
It was awesome, and the crowd was so supportive, and yeah, it was just really fun.
I learned a new skill of like being more cooperative.
They felt like family. As soon as you got used to it, you just look at them and it's like, oh my God.
It is a work that we think is truly inclusive and diverse at the same time, and those things are working in parallel in a really, really amazing way and proving that you can do both at the same time. It's sort of a very hard thing to describe, but there is definitely the reality of the limitations of my body. In that third hour, I'm challenged physically, mentally and emotionally as well.
I personally had lots of moments of thinking, how's he going? Is this going to work? Is he going to actually get over the line? What will happen if he doesn't? And that's part of the tension of the project for the audience and everybody working on it.
I think that's an interesting thing when you see an audience who may not know what is happening with Fun Run, and by the end of that show are invested in a complete stranger doing a task that is pretty futile, but what happens to the community and what happens to that group of people is actually the work.
I think the most powerful moment for me was when Tristan was finishing, and then he got off the treadmill and collapsed.
I mean, I just assumed he was absolutely in a terrible way.
And then he crawled across the stage towards the audience.
There was this kind of collective gasp, our marathon man is down, and the audience were with him.
So then when he stood up and really seemed quite chipper, I was really shocked.
Well, I've got to have some fun. I mean, I'm running a marathon, so that ending is what I'm actually looking forward to.
It was a wonderful moment for everybody. I mean, he was genuinely exhausted, but you know, the power of the audience and the power of showbiz, he found it within him to take a bow at the end.
It's also a way of letting the audience release after that task, because they're worried up until that point, and I'm genuinely in a lot of pain, but I think by by releasing it, it's like a sort of letting people breathe through that as well.
I believe that Fun Run offers a portrait to a city through a very real quest that someone undertakes who does not profess to be an expert and is genuinely saying to the city, let's do this together.
Fun Run just brought together so many diverse communities and performers. It actually allowed lots of different groups to come together at one event and all be really comfortable in their own skin.
The distance between art and sport is not very wide at all, and that actually all of these ways of bringing people together is fulfilling what we need as humans.
Betty Amsden would have loved Fun Run. And very sadly, Betty passed away just before Fun Run occurred. She would have loved seeing the diversity in the audience, and she would have loved the performances, which were joyful and spirited.
The idea that we can, celebrate and have fun in actually doing something that's good for us in terms of improving our physical activity and maybe socially connecting, sharing a smile or a dance move with someone we don't know. I think it's good for our mental well-being. People walk away with a smile on their faces, job done.
It really does bring so many people together in a unified space, and there's no judgment in terms of how people are included in the work, and everyone is included. And so I think it's a really interesting metaphor for the polar opposites that are working in the world at the moment. It's hard often to hear about stories that unite or opportunities that are connecting, and I think Fun Run really is a shining example of that, and I love that for it.